Hello and welcome to a Switzer CEO Masterclass. This is where we give CEOs of listed companies a chance to tell their stories. This is not a stock recommendation, but purely an educational piece to hear from the key people who run the companies of Australia. And today we talk with the CEO of Anteris Technologies, Wayne Paterson. Thanks for joining us, Wayne.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
So for those who don't know your company, Wayne, please explain what Anteris Technologies actually does.
Great. So a couple of things, really. I think the Anteris Technologies company today is really unique in the space that it's in. We're in the space where we treat a disease called aortic stenosis. That affects about 1 in 8 elderly Australians. It is a disease whereby the aortic valve in your heart calcifies heavily to the point where it becomes dysfunctional, or even the leaflets become quite brittle. So that valve in the severe state has to be replaced. There's no pharmacotherapy that is available to treat this condition. It's a procedure where typically they used to do surgery to replace that valve. Now, if the valve is not replaced and you have severe aortic stenosis, typically it could be in the age range of 75 to 80 by the time that starts. You have a risk of mortality of about 50% at that point. So it's quite a serious disease. Anteris Technology has been very well positioned to come to this market a little bit later than the other competitors, but with some technologies that were invented and created in Australia, but also with the benefit of hindsight. These are all Australian inventions, by the way, but we've come to the market with a very different approach to this particular disease state. And with the data we have so far, we are potentially the only company out there at the moment that could lay claim to having a functional cure for this current disease. There is no product that actually can claim that at the moment. And we can claim that for a bunch of reasons. One is the hemodynamics, the blood flow we get with this product are near normal, where the other products do not give you normal pre-disease blood flows. And our anti-calcification treatment, of course, is the best in the world, bar none. There's no discussion points around that from anybody. The data is very compelling. So treating that disease is quite novel and unique to be able to say that you have something that's close to a functional cure, which is where we are.
I guess, and I've got some other sort of company-related questions, but just listening to you there, it seems to me that what you need more than anything is the medical fraternity to say, look, there are competitors out there, but this one is just simply the best. Is that message out there? Are they saying it, or is this something you guys have to work on to basically force the medical fraternity to use what you're putting out there?
No, it's the right question, Peter. I think what we did several years back when we started what was a pivot of the company to get into this particular space, leveraging off the ADAPT technology, was I assembled a medical advisory board here in the States of the brightest minds in the space. And what I mean by that, we very carefully selected the right key opinion leaders who are highly published, well known by Wall Street, certainly well known by the other companies, and on the podiums a lot, as well as being obviously clinicians in their own right, representing the biggest centers in the US, like Cleveland Clinic and so on, Abbott, Northwestern. Now, those physicians are, they're all about reputation, and their whole careers have been built around their reputation. And the point of that is they don't get behind a company, particularly a small one, unless the technology and the science is very, very viable. They will not risk their reputations, and neither will the big centers where those doctors work. They will not get behind you. So our medical advisory board is first class. They do actually, if you go onto the website, you'll hear them talking about our product. We were recently at a conference a few weeks back called TVT, the biggest conference in this space, medical conference. The most important doctors in the space were up there talking about Duravar, our product. So we have them behind us. I think with the Australian market, obviously we were on the ASX there. We're not as connected to the KOLs down there, but we are starting to make inroads with the hospitals down there, and certainly some key opinion leaders as well. The TAVR space in Australia is a little bit behind the US, of course, and it's catching up now. So there is more and more interest in what we do, certainly down there. We've been talking to physicians down there as well, who are quite strong advocates already, and you'll see some of that in our AGM recently and on our website. We've got a couple of doctors now talking about our product.
Okay, on the subject of the AGM, you updated the market on the company's restructure. An interesting name called Code Red Finalisation. Did you achieve the expected results, financial and otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, Code Red's a bit like a very long relationship. It's something we started, when I stepped in about 4 years ago, and it seems to go on and on. But there's eventually an endpoint. The endpoint for Code Red for us was 2020. So that's why I reported on it. Code Red is aptly named. I've done 3, 4 of those in my career in very big markets. I was president of Europe for Merck, where I did one. I was CEO of Japan for Merck, where I did another. And they've all been fairly successful. The key to Code Reds is to have very clear metrics and objectives at the beginning, therefore understanding what your problems are, and then making sure you actually achieve those objectives by the end. So using that, I was extremely happy. There were a couple of big numbers there. So when I stepped in from the chairman's role, the CEO role, we have a production facility in Australia, a very good one, but the pass rates of our material was very low, at the lowest point about 22%. So one of the Code Red objectives, for example, was to get that pass rate up 250%, so up to about 75%. We got it up to 76% by 2020. So we really moved the pass rate in production manufacturing quite high. That obviously helps from a cost of goods and so on. So you get your margins in the right place. The other thing was just increasing the capacity of production. And the objective back then was to increase it by 250%. We got it up by about 430%. Over that period of time. So there are other metrics in there. Those are the ones I'm probably the most proudest of with the team because they all speak to productivity, margins, efficiencies, and so on. We reduced headcounts and a few other things in there, but I think every objective we actually set in 2016, 17, we achieved or certainly exceeded by the end of 2020.
Okay, you did mention the TVT meeting. Maybe you can explain that to my viewers, but also last week, this TVT, last time we went to TVT, you were talking about, now, I've read it a number of times, I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation is. It says DUR-AVR. I know you've referred to it quickly a few times, but I wanted to pull you up on it. What's the right pronunciation and what's the origins of, how do you pronounce it?
Well, thank you for asking me that question. So you pronounce it as Duravar.
Duravar, okay.
Yeah.
Now, DUAVR. Duravar.
Right. Now,
okay.
The other question I've never been asked before, so it's a great one, is what is the origin? So let me explain that. Because this product is so well branded right now in a space where the number one need for these products is durability. That means valves that last a lot longer than the current ones in the market. And the reason that's become very topical is in the last 2 years, the age of patients getting TAVR has become a lot younger. So the mean age went from about 85 to about 73 in 12-month period, 2019, 2020.
And we're living longer, so the valves have to last longer. That's what you mean.
Correct. Well, not only are they living longer, they're actually putting them in younger patients. They were not necessarily putting them into 73-year-olds. They were cracking their chest opening and going in surgically. Now they're using TAVR, and it's driving the market astronomically with a very high growth rate. Now, because durability is the number one issue, and because the current valves don't meet the durability requirements of patients in their 70s, we know two things. The valves wear out because they calcify heavily, the replacement valves, and they mechanically wear out. They're not designed like your normal valve. The Duravar valve is made from ADAPT technology, so that's the best anti-calcification treatment there is. So we've got that one. And it's a single piece unibody valve, like the one you're born with, which is very different to the current valves. It has much more structural integrity. And we've run these out on special machines that test that accelerate the aging of these valves. We've got ours out to about 15 years, which no one's done. So because of that structural integrity, we've got a valve that lasts longer, doesn't calcify, and it actually works better. We're getting normal blood flows where the others are not. The others were designed to go onto a catheter first and not necessarily designed to be anatomically correct. Ours was done the other way around because we had the benefit of hindsight. So Duravar means durable, the DUR part, and AVR. Any physician who sees AVR, which is the second part of that word, will recognize aortic valve replacement. So it's if you're a physician in the space, you'll recognize immediately that this is a durable aortic valve replacement.
Yeah. Did the coronavirus of 2020 hold back the progress of the company? Because medical concerns were on lungs and breathing and things like that.
Yeah, no. And look, I've got family who are physicians up here and working in the hospital system, and certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, there was a lot of pressure on hospitals, on the ICUs, which meant post-operatively, they were reserving the ventilators and so on. So a lot of the normal procedures were put on the back burner. And this particular condition, you can't go forever without treating it because you'll die, but you can put it on the back burner. So we saw a fair bit of that. We were very, very fortunate, Peter, and I have to say, luck sometimes just smiles on you on the ASX. And we did a big transaction in November of 2019, right before COVID, where we licensed out a big part of our commercial portfolio in the surgical space to a NASDAQ company up here. And what that did effectively was removed a lot of the costs, the headcounts that would have been sitting idle during COVID, and we would have had a whole different scenario on our hands because the sales went to zero. All those kind of procedures just stopped. And then I know that a lot of the companies here had no sales and they had headcount, a lot of reps and so on that they had to pay. So fortuitously, we got out from under that, got a good transaction. We banked a lot of cash as a result, and then rolled through, the development cycle. So we didn't really get affected too much. We're very lucky. We have a clinical study that started in Europe with our valve done surgically. And that started off quite nicely and then slowed down quite a lot as the hospitals kept opening and closing. But aside from that, I think we actually, we got out from under the COVID problems and issues that other companies face pretty well. Of course, the pandemic is nowhere near finished yet. And we'll see how that rolls out for the rest of the period. But we were in pretty good shape during that pandemic.
What can shareholders expect in terms of near-term catalysts for the company?
So we've got obviously a lot going on. The biggest catalyst that's coming up is the FDA approval, study approval that will come through in Q4. This will be, and all eyes are upon us for this one, because this valve is the first valve to give normal results post-operatively. And we've seen that in humans in the surgical study. Everyone's looking to see what this looks like as a TAVR, as a catheter-based valve. So that study, we were coming up on that, Q4. We've been working with the FDA consistently throughout this year on the study plan, the work plan. Some of our physicians have been into those meetings with us to help. And it's going very smoothly. We've got a couple of studies that are ongoing at the moment that are required by the FDA, so they're still in motion. And when those are finished, we'll be able to submit that in the whole package and should get that approval. There are other things along the way, but that would be the big catalyst for us coming up towards the end of the year.
Okay, the scary association with a thing called the FDA, but they tend to be nicer on medical products, aren't they, than they are on like cures for diseases and stuff like that. Is that a fair call?
It actually is, Peter. And I think you know that I spent 25 years in big pharma around the world, and I've launched 36 drugs, big ones. So I've been in front of the FDA quite a lot, particularly on the pharmaceutical side globally, as well as the TGA and other bodies. On the device side, I would say devices are far more mechanical. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Although this is kind of a hybrid because you have tissue treatments and other things. A drug is a chemical compound. Obviously, things can go wrong in a phase 3 study that you can't account for. It's happened to me. And you have adverse events, or you have even patient deaths, and that molecule is then put on a shelf. There's nothing you can do to change that. Now, with the device side of things, you tend to be more mechanical. You're in the hands of the physician. Less things can go wrong, and that's one of the nice things about this company. The risk of clinical failure at this point is very, very low compared to, say, a pharma product, which I've been involved with most of my career. So there is a lot of backwards and forwards. We have a lot of interaction with them. They're great to work with as long as you're communicative, as long as you obviously go through the right motions with them. And if you have the regular dialogue and the right dialogue and you listen to them and do what they ask, you'll get there. But it by no means is ever an easy process, and it shouldn't be. Obviously, patient safety is the number one issue.
Okay. So when is a deal likely that, and what would that deal look like that would actually really give you a lift up share price wise?
Yeah, so we're up about 100% give or take this year, which is not bad. We've been up higher than that, and it's tailed off a little bit. I've made public statements, and we just put out a cleansing announcement very recently, last 24 hours. We were in very active current deal discussions, where prices have certainly been put towards us. The issue we have right now, of course, is that the TAVR companies in prior times have been purchased for upwards of $1 billion Australian dollars pre-FDA approval. Without the data that we have much stronger data than those previous companies. So our market cap is obviously needs to move, as you pointed out, because as a public company, when I have other companies talking to me about acquisitions or whatever, our market cap doesn't support a price that they could realistically get away with Wall Street. All these companies are US based. By offering a 100 times premium on our current share price, as an example, which is pretty much what it would have to be fair value. So I think there's a ways to go to get the share price up. Other deals, certainly we're in discussion right now with a company on a partnership that includes upfronts, milestones, and royalties. That's a pharma style deal. I like those kind of deals because it funds the company without dilution, and it also helps give you an end point where that number, what it looks like once you get to commercial. And keep in mind that this market is going to be 10 billion US dollars by 2025. There's 2 players in the market only, and our data is better than both. Both those companies know us. We've got to get to market and get those approvals, but I don't think anyone's really doubting that at the moment. Regulators, the analysts in Wall Street, and so on. So this product, should it go all the way in the next couple of years and get to market, is a very big product. The market cap doesn't reflect that, but the reality of the numbers certainly do. The biggest, the market leader right now is 65% market share. If we had 50% market share in 5 years, that's a $5 billion product. So you start to connect where a deal starts to make sense. Certainly not on the market cap we have today, but it's coming. It's certainly, we're in that zone. It's not 25 years away. We're really in the window where all the data is coming through now.
So the FDA decision in Q4 of this year is going to be the critical.
Well, that FDA is to start. Yeah, it's an approval for the study. That's really important. The European CE study will start midway through next year, and I'm hoping to include some Australian centres in that study. We are actually in discussion with a couple of Aussie centres right now. The Europeans will allow us to do that. So hopefully at that point, we should have a couple of Australian sites online midway, say Q3 next year.
Okay, mate. Well, great. Thanks for joining us. Good luck with it. We'll keep our fingers crossed for you.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it. Take care.